yourself. I can tell that you don't love nobody but yourself. So please don't put me on a show. I can love you, I can help you feel the way you felt. I think you wrong and you think you right about these letters that you sent into his house tonight. Never get me, but I understand, I think it's fine. I lost your number and I don't expect you hitting mine. Enjoy yourself. Just move for somebody else. Enjoy yourself.
AP Micro, come on, let's go. Another day. Fine Wednesday out there, people. I can tell you it's a fine Wednesday. I just went out there, threw the ball around a little bit with Hans, and he loved it. Beautiful outside. And I'm going to try to get you guys out of here at 2, all right? I think there's plenty of time to give you the notes, give you the lecture, and plenty of time to still go into Google Meet and get all that done from 1 to 2. But again, if you need more work, you need more help, right, with your work after 2, from 2 to 2:30, then I'll definitely help you out. I'll be here till 2:30. But if you pay attention, I think there'll be enough time to pay attention, get the notes done, do your problem set by 2 o'clock, so you can enjoy this fine weather that we have out there. But glad you guys can join in to the live stream today. How we doing? How we doing out there, people? How we doing? All right, so your attendance in the chat is this today. Your attendance in the chat is you have to ask Mr. Moore a question. You have to ask Mr. Moore a question. Because I can't get you guys to talk in Google Meet. I get like 3 or 4 of you guys to chat. Give me a question. Give me a question. It could be about econ or it could be about life. I don't know. Make sure it's school appropriate though. Okay. All right, while you're doing that, let's go over a couple things. I just returned your 2.4, and I got to be honest with you guys, I didn't really look too much at 2.4. I looked at a few of you guys that I'm kind of like monitoring a little bit, but I didn't look at a majority of you guys. Okay, so make sure. That's a great question, Jenna. I'm doing great. But make sure you correct your problem sets all the time. Okay, check your problem sets. I'm putting like explanations and everything in there in the answers, so if you don't understand, like you should be able to kind of read the explanation and figure things out, okay? And if you don't understand, speak up, Brian, ask me. Don't forget. Okay, another reminder, it's 2.5 is due tonight. Some of you guys are kind of still turning things in after the deadline. I've been pretty good about it, but you know, I'm giving you 2 days. You guys start cracking down a little bit. Come on, get your problem sets in, right? Yeah, there we go. We got some questions coming in. Other things. Yeah, we're gonna talk about taxes today on a product market. It's gonna be kind of like trade yesterday, right? We're gonna alter the market a little bit. We're gonna measure CS, PS, government revenue, deadweight loss, and see who is helped and who is hurt by the tax instead of the tariff was yesterday. All right, so pretty light. Only a couple slides. Vocab slide, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. And then, yeah, we'll hop into the Google Meet. Okay? All right. How are you? Like I said, I'm doing great. What is 2 plus 2? Taha? That doesn't count. You're absent right now. You better come up with a better question. You're absent. What is your favorite type of pepper? It's a very good question. My favorite type probably is a Serrano. Followed by a jalapeno, followed by like a poblano. And why? A lot of heat, but a lot of purpose. You can use those peppers for a lot of different things, like chili, salsa, like jalapeno poppers, right? You can use those pretty much for anything. You can put it like on a pizza. A lot of uses. I grow a lot of peppers that there's not a lot of use, like Carolina Reaper, Trinidad Scorpion, habanero even, right? Cayenne, things like that. They only really have like one purpose, so that's my favorite type of pepper. The sky is blue because it reflects like water, I think. It reflects the ocean, Ariella. I don't know. Are you trying to get me? My science knowledge? I don't know. How are the boys? The boys are doing pretty good, I think. The boys are doing pretty good. All my friends work at the school. They all like drive to school every day. I'm like kind of the only one that's working from home, so I think they're doing well. But I'll meet up with them, maybe on a Friday. We'll see. Did you ever get a second dog, Mer? It's funny because a macro student asked me that. That was the first question I was asked today. I think Hans is sort of an only child kind of dog. So the answer right now is no, but there's times where I think he actually would be better with a second dog. So it's a tough one there. Do you eat all the peppers you grow? Absolutely. I don't waste any peppers. But a lot of times I make salsa and give it to people. So I don't eat it, but it gets eaten. I don't waste any peppers. No way. That's inefficient. That's inside the curve. Favorite color? Oh my gosh, Ethan. It's turquoise. That's a good question. Mike asked, what's your favorite song? Hold on here. Oh, I can't play it on the live stream, or else I'll get copyright. I don't really have a favorite song, but what we did in macro, because someone asked me the same question as well. If you looked at my most played songs of 2019, you guys would be pretty shocked. We can do that later. Can you live stream some FIFA? I can live stream anything you want. I'll live stream anything you want. You want to do it today? I'll do it today. I got you. I'm pretty good at FIFA. Caleb, do you play FIFA? Man, I'd roll you up in weekend league. I'd roll you up. How's Hans? Hans is doing pretty good. He's been pretty sleepy today. I'm not gonna lie. He hasn't come down here at all to check on me. He's just been laying on the couch. So he's gonna have tons of energy later. I think I hear him moving. Did you see the Wolves-Sheffield United game? I did not. I haven't watched any Premier League games other than Liverpool-Leeds, which was a phenomenal game. That was a really cool game. It's really cool seeing Leeds back in the Prem. Is Hans really the Mons? I think so. That's just a name that students gave him. I don't really use that nickname at all. What's your favorite fruit? Sushi. That's a good question. Favorite sport? Football, but I like all sports. I swear I like all sports. I'm just saying I like soccer a lot. It's sort of a newfound sport I like a lot. I like golf, especially in majors, right? The U.S. Opens this week. I love watching golf all weekend. I think the NBA playoffs have been amazing. I like NHL. I haven't been that much in the NHL, but I can watch it, though. I could go to a game and it'd be sweet. I like baseball a lot, but the Tigers are pretty bad. So, favorite football team? NFL would be the Steelers. My dad always loved the Steelers, so I kind of grew up my dad rooting for the Steelers, so naturally I sort of just always root for the Steelers. Cannot be a Lions fan. Get out of here with that. And then college football would be MSU, just because I went to MSU. And I heard Big Ten is going to happen, so we'll see. Are you going to start posting Hans' Instagram more? I know I should, and I just never do. I don't know why. I'm not much of a picture taker person. If you look at my real Instagram page, I got 4 pictures on there, right? And I haven't put a Facebook photo up in years, so I'm not good at that. But I should do that more. You're right, Cam. You're right. Favorite sport to watch? Probably football. But again, golf is thrilling. I know you guys are what? No, golf is thrilling. And what's your favorite TV show? There you go, Taha. Low, not reflecting the water. What are you talking about? That is hot. That's why the sky's blue. It reflects off the ocean. So we're the sky's blue, right? What's your favorite TV show? It's tough. Narcos, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Ozarks. Those are probably my top ones. I'm probably missing a good one though. Cam, you know about the Lads? Oh no. How do you know about the Lads? Oh no. All right, someone write why the sky is blue in the chat, because Ariella is exposing me for what I am, exposing my science knowledge. Let's see what you're doing out there. I forgot to switch scenes. I was supposed to answer all my questions in a real format, and I forgot. Unbelievable scenes, unbelievable scenes. Well, I'm glad you guys are all here, and without further ado, let's go knock out some taxes. Screen's getting blurry now. And then we will be on our way. People, we learned about terms of trade, and look I was teaching about the quick and dirty method today. I was teaching about all the methods to figure out terms of trade. You better believe my macro students are going to be good to go. Virtual learning, coronavirus is not going to stop them. We're going to have 5s for days in macro. Anyway, let's get the micro here. All right. Here. Okay. I don't know, Jen. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I believe you. You can ask another question. Did you even ask a question, Chase? How are the boys? I feel like if you're asking to ask another question, it's going to be an inappropriate question. No, I'm not a round earther. Get out of here. Get out of here. All right. Okay, Chase, ask your question, but I'm going to get going here a little bit. All right, so what are we doing today? Kind of the same thing we did yesterday, all right? We looked at the impacts of trade and no trade and limits to trade, and we just basically measured who is helped, who is hurt, tax revenue, consumer surplus, economic surplus, deadweight loss, measuring all those different economic measures of efficiency. Can you name 3 things that you use every day? Economics is 1. 2 is a toothbrush. And 3 is my coffee maker. Is this a trick question or what? I don't know what's going on here. All right. Anyway, moving on. All right, excise taxes. Okay, people, this is a big deal. Now, we're going to learn more about taxes tomorrow, and we're going to relate taxes to elasticity. But taxes is going to come about in every market structure that we explore, like the 4 major graphs I would say that we're going to explore later on in class, right? We're going to learn how to regulate a monopoly and why taxing a monopoly would actually be bad. So, for example, so taxes is a big deal. So make sure you guys are paying attention. Right off the bat here, I'm going to talk about the difference between a per unit tax and a lump sum tax. Big difference here. Soon we're going to talk about cost curves, and we're going to be graphing cost curves. And cost curves may or may not change based on the type of tax. And I'm going to revisit this at a later date. And I hope when I show you that slide and I revisit taxes at a later date, you guys are like, I don't know what's going on. I hope you're paying attention today. So, a per unit tax on producers is an excise tax. Excise tax is per unit, okay? What does that mean? It means every time a good is produced, each unit is taxed, right? So if I produce 10 apples, each one of my apples is taxed, say $2, right? So if I produce 10 apples, and each apple is taxed at $2, in total I would pay $20 in taxes. Each unit is going to get taxed. So that's a big deal because it's going to impact decisions from the producer. Okay, every time I make an apple, I got to know that I got to pay $2. If I make an additional apple, I got to pay an additional $2. Make another apple, I got to pay an additional $2. So, long story short, and we're going to explore it later, is this changes supply. This changes supply because each and every unit we produce, we have to pay that additional tax. A lump sum tax does not change supply. It does not change supply. It just lowers our total cost in hopes to, if a tax increases, it would lower our profit. And if a lump sum tax decreases, it would increase our profit. Whole point is a lump sum tax is a one-time payment, right? So that'd be Hungry Howie's, you have to pay a annual tax of $1,000, right? So for Hungry Howie's, that's not going to change their production decisions like a per unit tax would. Every time you make a pizza, you gotta pay a tax. Lump sum would be like, all right, I got to pay the government $1,000. Doesn't matter if I make no pizzas or 1,000 pizzas. Doesn't matter. I'm paying $1,000. So it's not going to change my production decisions. Like I will make 0 or 1,000 or 2,000. Does not matter. A per unit tax, every time a producer makes a decision to produce an additional unit of output, they have to pay that additional unit of taxes, right? There's an additional cost. So you're just going to make more sense later, but that's the idea. So this one does change supply. A per unit tax does, lump sum tax would not. Okay? Lump sum is one time only. And the same thing would be a per unit subsidy and a per unit tax. Everything would just be like opposite today. Now we're not going to actually learn about a per unit subsidy. There's no questions about it, but it kind of work in a similar fashion. Okay. All right. So what is the goal of a tax? A per unit tax, an excise tax, would be to discourage economic behavior. Right. You know, we tax alcohol because we don't want people drinking a lot of alcohol. Marijuana is legal. We tax marijuana, right? Because we don't want people smoking a lot of marijuana. We tax gasoline because we don't want people polluting the atmosphere, right? We want to incentivize people to carpool or cut down driving when possible. We tax cigarettes because cigarettes are the most polluted item in the entire world, and also secondhand smoking and things like that. I did say economics. You weren't paying attention. What are you talking about? That's the whole point of a tax, because we know that if it decreases supply, there's going to have a higher price. Less people are going to be willing to buy it, and less quantity is going to be brought to market as a result of that. We're going to see that today. We're going to get less quantity brought to market. That's the point of a tax. The second point of a tax is this. Again, we live in a modern economy. We live in an economy where we depend upon public goods. Right now, public education, right? None of you guys are paying for it. You're paying for it via taxes. That way, we have no free riders, right? No one's not paying the bill, but they still get education, right? And we'll talk more about free riders and externalities, positive and negative, later, and public goods, like how many public goods should be created. But yeah, we live in a modern society, right? Public education, even subsidized college education in a lot of instances. National defense, right? Public parks, freeways, right? Roads, right? All these things are provided by the public sector. And the reason they're provided by the public sector is all these goods are non-profitable, or they're not excludable. There's no way to punish a free rider from using it, one that does not pay. We're talking about more about public goods in the future, but it's just the cost of living in a modern economy. We need goods that are not going to be produced by the private market. So in order to pay for those goods, the government has to find some sort of way to collect revenue. And a good way to collect revenue is taxing goods that are harmful, right? So excise taxes. So excise taxes sometimes are called sin taxes because generally we're taxing things that are sinful, right? Alcohol, cigarettes, things like that. If a business pollutes a lake to a certain, if a business is near a lake and the pH level changes too much, we know that it's being polluted by the business, so we're going to tax that business per change in pH, right? Is sort of how it works. So, that's the whole point of a tax. Okay, that's the vocab word. Excise tax is per unit. Don't forget, lump sum doesn't change supply. We'll talk more about that at a later date. It's just a one-time payment. It's not going to alter decision making for producers. All right, so here we go. We got our supply and demand graph, right? Our supply and demand graph right now says we're going to get 100 units brought to market and sold, because that's where QE equals QS. So that would be the price that producers would want to charge for their cigarettes. So right now, the price for cigarettes, a carton or box, I guess, a box of cigarettes would be $3. And we're going to get 100 units brought to market, and 100 units are going to be purchased, right? Assuming that we're going to operate at equilibrium. So the government says, let's tax cigarettes. Again, number one most looted item in the world. Cigarettes causes secondhand smoking, a lot of health issues that probably, is an added cost for Medicare and Medicaid and things like that. We generally don't want people smoking cigarettes or vapes, right? Some of you guys might be vaping right now. Don't be vaping. No more vaping, okay? Really, really bad for you. Don't do that. Anyway. So the government's like, cigarettes, bad. Let's tax it. Let's get revenue. Let's use that revenue to fund schools or roads, okay? Well, you guys should already know that a per unit tax decreases supply, right? It's just a shifter of supply, subsidies and taxes. So if we increase taxes, it's going to decrease supply. We really haven't talked a lot about like why, okay? Well, think about it like this. An excise tax, as stated earlier, is a tax on producers. The producer is the one who has to pay the tax. So if I buy a box of cigarettes at the store, say I buy it for $5, it's also my teeth. I pay $5 for the box of cigarettes. The seller receives that $5 and then goes and pays the government $2, right? Because that's the tax on the production and sale of the cigarettes. And then they keep the $3, right? So our supply curve decreases, right? And I want you to look at it, because our supply curve is the willingness and ability to produce and sell a product. And at $2, that's enough incentive for 80 units to be brought to market, 80 units of cigarettes to be brought to market. So the price has to be $2. Sellers have to collect $2 to bring per unit to bring that many units to market. So now, if they got to pay a $2 tax, that price better be $4, right? Because essentially, if they sell it for $4, they got to go in turn and pay the government $2. That's going to be that 80 units that's going to be brought to market. So at $4, they're going to bring 80 units to market, because at $4 is essentially $2. That's really the price that they're going to receive for production and sale of that cigarette, right? Price would normally have to be $3 to get 100 units, brought to market. Now they got to pay that $2 tax, so they got to sell it for $5. So $5 really is the price that they're going to bring 100 units to market, because they know they're going to get $3 after they pay the tax. So supply decreases, And the most important thing, and probably FRQ item A, letter A, the first question that they generally ask you in a tax FRQ, and also obviously there's MCs about this stuff, is how much is the tax, right? Well, I told you it's $2, but what if they give you the graph and they say identify the tax, a little bit more realistic without the supply schedule to the left. How do you find the tax? Do not forget, people, it is the vertical distance between the supply curves. I cannot stress this enough. This question is cheese, yet every year students miss it. They miss it. I can't tell you how many students will look at this and they'll say the tax is $1. And they'll say the tax is $1 because the change in price goes from 3 to 4. And they'll say tax is $1 because price goes up from $3 to $4. That's the change in price, right? Is 3 to 4, but the amount of the tax is always the vertical distance. That's why supply shifts to the length that it does, right? Vertical distance between the supply curve, right? So generally we'll get lines like this, so 4 minus 2 is 2, or 3 minus 5 is 2, or 3 minus 1 is 2. It's the vertical distance. We know that the tax on this market has to be $2. Got it? Don't forget. Please don't forget that. Okay, that's very, very important. All right, so let's kind of work through this together. What are the other things that we're responsible to know? What are other things that we need to be able to identify and measure and find here? So we had a $2 tax put on this market, and based on the $2 tax, it appears that price increased by $1. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes price would increase by the full amount of the tax, $2. Sometimes price might increase by 25 cents on a $2 tax. We're going to learn more about that tomorrow when we start implementing elasticity. We change the elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply. We're going to notice that price changes by a greater or less amount than the tax. So what's the new price? It's $4. So if you're taking notes right now, which I highly recommend, what I always do when I find that new equilibrium price, I write PB next to it. And PB means price that the buyers are going to pay, right? Like, in other words, at the gas station, a carton or a box of cigarettes is going to be priced at $4. That's going to be the price tag. Consumers are going to see $4 and they're going to pay $4 for it. So I like to label that PB, price the buyers pay. You'll see even more why I do that here in a second. Another thing I wanted to touch on real quick. Sometimes you get questions like this. Question B on an FRQ sometimes for taxes will say, does the change in price rise by the full amount of the tax? Is the change in price greater, equal, or less than the amount of the tax? It could also say. In this case, right, the answer is no. The change in price does not equal the tax. The change in price is less than the tax. The tax is $2. The change in price is $1. You just see that sometimes. Okay, next thing. Now that we have the price that the buyers are going to pay, right, we can then get consumer surplus, because we know consumer surplus is how much are people willing to pay, how much do they actually pay, all the way to quantity brought to market and sold. Okay, so I know I didn't finish my demand curve here, and really you're supposed to do that. You're always supposed to finish your demand curve and finish your supply curve. This is really like bad economics from Mr. Moore here. But willing to pay, right, our demand curve would be somewhere up here, what they actually pay, all the way to quantity brought to market and sold. Okay, so our consumer surplus looks like that, right? Willing to pay, what we actually pay, we're going to get 80 units brought to market, and consumers are going to buy 80 units, our demand curve says, at $4, right? We're not at disequilibrium here. We're going to assume that as a result of that tax, right, we're going to move to this new equilibrium price here, so the quantity brought to market and sold is going to be 80 units. So yeah, there is our consumer surplus right there. Consumers are going to pay $4 for a box of cigarettes. Cool. All right, next let's look at producer surplus. Producer surplus, right? So producer surplus is what are you willing to sell it for, and what do you actually sell it for, all the way to quantity brought to market and sold. So some sellers are willing to sell it down here, right, if I was to keep this line going, and they actually sell it for how much? Some people are like, they sell it for $4. Well, they price it at $4, but how much do they really sell it for? How much are they really going to get when they sell a box of cigarettes for $4 in this market? In a market in which there's a $2 tax. They sell it for $4, put $4 in the cash register, right? And then, once they do their taxes, right, they got to pay $2 to the government right? So how much do they really get for that box of cigarettes? The price the sellers really receive is $2. So I like to label that PS. That's the price that the sellers recognize that they actually receive for sale of this good is $2. Okay, because they got to pay the government $2 per unit. Every time they sell a unit, they got to pay $2. Okay, so that's the price the sellers are really going to get. The price the sellers really receive, and it's going to be worded like that. It's going to say price sellers receive, right? It's $2. That's how much they really get for sale of that good. So that's our producer surplus. Willing to sell what they actually sell for. Very good, Jenna. Following along, all the way to quantity brought to market and sold. So we got consumer surplus, we got producer surplus. So if you look at it real quick, right, before the tax, this was all consumer surplus, right? Before the tax. This would obviously all be consumer surplus. This would obviously be all producer surplus. So as a result of the tax, consumers kind of lost out. Producers lost out. They both lost economic surplus. Consumers are unhappy. Those that smoke cigarettes, right, are unhappy, obviously, because they got to pay more. Those that don't smoke cigarettes are probably happy, though, so they don't smell, right? And producers that produce cigarettes obviously are not happy either. So we lost economic surplus. So money changed hands to a third party, government, right? Government's going to collect some of the piece of the pie here, right? Government revenue. So let me ask you this: how many goods are produced and brought to market here? 80, right? Because this is our equilibrium price and our equilibrium quantity. 80 units are going to be brought to market and sold after the tax. They need to find more tax loopholes. That's true. Anyway, so we're going to produce 80 units, right? We're going to produce 80 units, and every time we produce a unit, we got to pay the government $2. So our government revenue is going to be right there. 2 times 80. I told you guys yesterday, government revenue is always a rectangle. It's always a rectangle. Okay? It's never a triangle. Never a triangle. Economic surplus either has to be a triangle or a trapezoid. Will never be a rectangle. Okay? Just, I don't know. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I hope that makes sense. This is government revenue. 80 units are going to be produced and sold, and we're taxing each one at $2 a pop. So if we sell 80 units, we pay $2 each unit. The government's going to collect, in this case, $160. The government revenue would be $160. Because we have numbers here, we can actually calculate it out. Okay? Last but not least, that leaves us some dead weight loss. We have dead weight loss here. This whole thing used to be economic surplus, or consumer surplus. This whole thing used to be producer surplus here, right? And now it's nothing. It's not government revenue. It's not consumer surplus. It's not producer surplus. It's quite simply dead weight loss. It's just loss of economic surplus. Okay, so review. Economists don't like taxes, but we understand why there's taxes, and really rephrase that. Economists like taxes if it truly is a negative externality, right? In the case of cigarettes are a negative externality. We're going to learn more about externalities at a later date, but basically an externality is it's harmful to people that don't actually consume the good, right? People that don't actually aren't willing to able to buy it, right? Someone else buys it and it affects them negatively. Like a positive externality would be like a flu shot. If someone goes out and buys a flu shot, you didn't buy one, but it actually is going to help you, right? It's an economic benefit that's going to help others that weren't involved in that initial transaction. People that smoke cigarettes are going to harm others that were not involved in the transaction of cigarettes. It's a negative externality. So economists like it, even though there's going to be dead weight loss, because we want less quantity. This is a negative externality because the socially optimal quantity truly is 80. It's not 100. In this market, cigarettes are overproduced, and we want them produced less. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 practices with you. I'm going to show you guys how to do it again twice in a row here. So I think after showing you guys how to do it 3 times, you should be able to do the problem set today. And I got good news for you. The problem set is one side only today. It's very easy. It's a very small problem set. So just keeping it light. We're doing pretty good. Our pace is good, so I don't want to be outrageous here. Okay, let's do another example. Okay, so here is a multiple choice diagram that I took. And all the questions that they could have asked in regards to, the illustration here. So, number 1, consumer surplus before the tax, right? I hope you guys would know that before the tax, it would just be where supply equals demand, right? Before the tax, so it would just be A, B, C, D, right? This whole triangle here, because we'd be operating at P2, willing to buy for what we actually buy for, all the way to quantity brought to market. Consumer surplus before the tax would be A, B, C, and D. Okay. Number 2, what is the consumer surplus after the tax? Well, after the tax, our consumer surplus would be right there, right? Because we know that. So again, here's the vertical distance. This would be the amount of the A's. So how much is the tax? I don't even have that question on here. How would you be able to identify the amount of the tax here? P3 minus P1, right? If we took P3 minus P1, that number would represent the amount of the tax because that's the vertical distance. Okay? But the new price will go from P2 to P3, willing to buy for what you actually buy it for, all the way to quantity brought to market. This would be our consumer surplus. Producer surplus after the tax would be G. Why is that? Well, consumers are going to buy it for a price of P3. That's where I would write PB at, price the buyers pay. We got to pay them that tax, which is the vertical distance. So sellers really sell it for a price of P1. Willing to sell it, what you actually sell it for, all the way to quantity brought to market. That would be our producer surplus, just letter G. Price consumers pay after the tax, right? That'd be P3. That'd be P3. What's the price consumers are going to pay? What's the price that's going to be listed on the price tag at the store? Tax revenue for the government would be B, C, H, and F, right? Because we're going to produce this much quantity, Q1, and each unit is going to be taxed at the price of P3 minus P1, right? Imagine if P3 minus P1 was $2. $2 times Q1 would be the amount of the government revenue. How would you write it if there was no letters in here, right? If I had to figure out tax revenue for the government, I would do it like this. I would do P3 minus P1 parentheses Q1, right? Like P3 minus P1 times Q1 would be the area of in the green there. That'd be our tax revenue. Deadweight loss, assuming society wants Q2 produced, right? And the reason it says that is later we're going to learn about negative externalities. If the socially optimal quantity is Q1, then there is no deadweight loss. Okay, so the deadweight loss is there because pretending that this is a market that is like milk, or there's no like bad things that are going to happen to other people that don't buy milk, that would be a deadweight loss. Like we want this much quantity, right? Is the idea. So there's our deadweight loss. 7, price producers receive for the good, right? That's P1. That's the price that the sellers really get after they pay that tax. And then 8, amount of revenue producers receive. You haven't seen this one yet, okay? That would be right here in the turquoise there. P1 times Q1, right? P1 times Q1 would be the amount of revenue producers receive. Just think about it like this. This is the price that they really receive, right, times the quantity that they produce and sell. This is how much revenue the business would make. Remember, revenue is always price times quantity. So think about it like this, and this is also questions you're going to see on the problem set here. I don't know if I'm going to cover it in the next practice question. This. Sometimes it says, what is the total expenditures in this market? What is the total expenditures in this market? Like how much total spending takes place? That's what expenditures mean. That'd be P3 times Q1, right? The consumers paid a price of P3 and they bought a quantity of Q1. So total spending would be all of this, right? Like a huge rectangle here. A huge rectangle here, right? Q1 times P3, that whole thing. That's total spending. It also would be total revenue, like entirely in the market. What is the total revenue in the entire market? Spending equals revenue. Like if I spend $10, that $10 becomes revenue, okay, to the business. So this is all revenue. However, of the total revenue, the government takes this much revenue, which becomes government revenue, and out of all that revenue, this is how much revenue goes to the business. Okay, so like you can see either of those 4 questions asked. Total spending would be P3 times Q1, the whole thing, which would also mean total revenue in the entire market. If it didn't specify government or producers, it'd be the whole thing. Government revenue would be the green, and then producer revenue for all the businesses in this market would be P1 times Q1. Tracking? Good. All right, I'm going to do this one a little quicker, and then we'll be on our way to Google Meet, and we'll enjoy this nice weather that we have. Price before the tax, $3, right? It's $3 equilibrium price. Price consumers pay after the tax, it's $4. Does the change in price rise by the full amount of the tax? Nope, the tax appears to be $2, 4 minus 2, and the change in price is only $1. Again, that's going to change tomorrow when we start changing elasticity here. Price producers get after the tax would be $2. Okay. let's go find consumer surplus. It's not asked, but there it is. There's producer surplus right there. Tax revenue would be right there. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 times 80 is $160. Dead weight loss again would be right there. And yeah, that's kind of everything. That's kind of everything. Answer this question for me. What is the total expenditures in this market? Give me a dollar amount. Give me a dollar amount. What is the total expenditures in this market? Total spending. What's the total spending that's going to take place in this market? Total expenditures. Total spending. Who's going to receive the more dollar? Total spending. No, come on. 320, is that right? 4 times 80, 160, 160 times 2 is 320. 320. My man, Ethan. There's Micah, Jenna. Good job, guys. Absolutely. So 320, and then think about it. So total spending is 320, total revenue is 320. Government's going to take 160 of that 320. So how much goes to the firms? The other 160. So 320 is going to be spent, 320 is going to become revenue, government's going to take 160 of it, thus is going to leave 160 left over for the businesses. You guys rock. I hope you guys aren't just copying the first couple people. But no, awesome, yeah, sweet, cool. Problem set, is this 2.6? It is 2.6, I think. All right, cool. All right, so people, I will meet you in the Google Meet. And I will meet you there at 1:41, and I want you in there for 19 minutes, and I want all of you guys to finish your problem set. None of you guys should have homework. There's no way you guys should have homework, okay? All right, I'll see you guys there in a moment.